To the plane crash in Brazil that killed 62 people. Investigators are now reviewing the black boxes after video showed the plane as it appeared to fall out of the sky.
New information tonight on this haunting scene. A plane spinning slowly as it drops from the sky.
The plane carrying 8 top cancer researchers crashed in Vinhedo, São Paulo, eliminating all 62 people on board. But what investigators are now uncovering is even more terrifying. These brilliant scientists had dedicated their lives to fighting cancer, giving hope to millions, yet their path ended in a horrifying disaster. But as more details come to light, this tragedy is turning into something much darker than anyone expected. Was this really just an accident? Or is there something we're not being told? Tune in, because what happened on that flight will confirm that the cure for cancer is out there, but someone is trying to hide it. The crash that should never have happened. Vopass Flight 2283, an ATR 72-500 twin-engine turboprop, was just supposed to be another routine trip from Cascavel, Parana, to São Paulo's Guarulhos International Airport. On board were everyday travelers, business professionals, and those 8 cancer specialists on their way to an oncology conference. But the flight never made it. Instead, it ended in flames, metal wreckage, and a trail of haunting questions. Before we go any further, the truth behind this crash is turning out to be far more disturbing than anyone expected. And what comes next will leave you absolutely stunned.
But as the nose wheel leaves the ground, the DC-8 pitches upward much more steeply than it should.
Everything seemed fine until the aircraft reached 17,000 feet. Then, without warning, chaos struck. Reports confirmed the plane encountered violent weather, intense turbulence, and something far worse, icing. Within moments, the plane plunged from the sky, entering an uncontrollable spin before smashing into a residential neighborhood. The impact was catastrophic, but what caused this sudden fall? Why did an experienced flight crew lose control so quickly? The cockpit voice recorder has since revealed one disturbing fact. The co-pilot's final words referenced a lot of ice. That one phrase could be the key to understanding this horrifying event. Icing is no minor inconvenience. It is one of the deadliest threats to aircraft safety. It can destroy lift, weigh down a plane, and freeze vital instruments. If the pilots were caught in a severe ice storm, the aircraft's ability to stay in the air would have been severely compromised. But wasn't the plane designed to handle such conditions? That is where things get even more concerning. Investigators have confirmed that the aircraft's icing detectors were activated during the flight. This means the pilots were aware of the problem, but did they act in time? Or was there something wrong with the plane's de-icing system? If that system failed, then this crash was more than just an accident. It was a preventable disaster.
Building up some ice on my wing.
Okay, let's get it down to where it's warmer to melt it off.
Now, experts are digging deeper into the aircraft itself. The ATR-72 has a history with ice-related problems, and this isn't the first time an incident like this has occurred. Older models of this aircraft have been involved in crashes where ice played a major role. Could this be yet another case of a known issue ignored until it was too late? Even worse, there are questions about whether Vopass Flight 2283 should have even been flying that day. Did the airline ignore the risks? Were the pilots properly trained to handle such extreme conditions? And why did a plane carrying some of the brightest minds in cancer research fall victim to something that should have been preventable? The world lost more than just a plane that day. The 8 cancer researchers on board weren't just passengers, they were pioneers, people dedicated to finding treatments that could have saved countless lives. Their work was making real progress, and now their research has been cut short in the worst way imaginable. The medical world is in mourning, and their families are left with nothing but grief and unanswered questions. This crash has left a scar on aviation, medicine, and the people who believed in these brilliant researchers. It is a grim reminder that even those working to save lives are not immune to the unpredictability of fate. Authorities are now piecing together every detail of the flight's final moments. The flight data recorder, black box, and debris will tell the full story. Was it mechanical failure, human error, or something else entirely? The world wants answers, and the victims' families deserve nothing less. One thing is certain, this should never have happened. Modern aircraft should not fall out of the sky without a fight. Pilots should not be caught off guard by ice, and aviation safety should never be a gamble. Yet here we are, with 62 lives lost and a growing list of questions no one seems ready to answer. That is the most chilling part of this entire disaster. If the root cause was an ignored issue, faulty equipment, or bad decision-making, then what is stopping another plane from suffering the same fate? How many other aircraft are out there flying in dangerous conditions, completely unaware they could be the next to go down? The aviation industry has come too far to let something like this slide. For now, families grieve, doctors mourn, and investigators scramble for answers. But will those answers bring justice? Or will this be just another aviation tragedy swept under the rug? That is the question haunting everyone watching this case unfold. The crash of Vopas Flight 2283 was not the first time something like this had happened in Brazil. The skies over Brazil keep turning deadly. When it comes to aviation disasters, Brazil has had its fair share of devastating crashes that left behind chaos, unanswered questions, and broken families. These accidents didn't just shake the aviation industry, they sent shockwaves through an entire nation.
Brazil's Vopas airline updating the number of those who perished from 61 to 62.
The skies, once seen as a pathway to adventure, quickly became reminders of unthinkable tragedy. And yet, despite regulations, safety measures, and investigations, history keeps repeating itself. What keeps going wrong? Why do these disasters keep happening? Take the catastrophe of July 17, 2007, TAM Airlines Flight 3054. A routine flight from Porto Alegre to São Paulo ended in absolute horror. The Airbus A320-233, packed with passengers, came in for landing at Congonhas Airport under heavy rain. But the moment its wheels touched down, disaster struck. Instead of slowing down, the plane kept speeding forward, skidding helplessly across the slick runway. Within seconds, it blasted past the tarmac, careened into a nearby warehouse, and exploded into flames. Nearly 200 lives were wiped out in an instant. Passengers, crew, even unsuspecting workers on the ground. To this day, it remains the deadliest crash in Brazilian history. But the real question is, why did it happen? Investigators quickly pointed fingers at multiple failures. The runway lacked grooves to drain water, turning it into a slip and slide. One of the plane's thrust reversers wasn't working properly, meaning there was almost no chance to stop. And to make matters worse, pilots were put in situations where human error was just waiting to happen. Yet, despite all this, Congonhas Airport stayed in operation. Why was a major airport still using a flawed runway with a history of accidents? But that wasn't the first, and definitely not the last horrifying crash. 1 year earlier, on September 29, 2006, Gol Transportes Aéreos Flight 1907 suffered an unimaginable fate. Flying at 37,000 feet, the Boeing 737-800 was cruising over the Amazon rainforest when it collided mid-air with an Embraer Legacy 600 business jet. Just like that, an entire passenger plane broke apart mid-air and plummeted straight into the jungle. 154 souls gone. Meanwhile, the Legacy jet, miraculously, it landed safely with its passengers and crew shaken but alive. How was that possible? Turns out a string of deadly mistakes led to this mid-air catastrophe. The Legacy jet's transponder, an essential system that prevents crashes, was turned off, leaving the Gol flight completely blind to its presence. Air traffic controllers failed to notice the danger until it was too late. And just like that, a deadly game of chance played out in the sky. One plane got lucky, the other didn't. But luck should have nothing to do with air travel, right? Sure, investigators stepped in. The Brazilian Aeronautical Accidents Investigation and Prevention Center launched inquiries. The usual responses followed: search for black boxes, analyze pilot errors, inspect maintenance records.
The result was a violent roll movement, which the pilots were then ultimately unable to overcome.
But here's the thing, Brazil has been down this road before, repeatedly. After every crash, there's outrage. After every investigation, there are recommendations. And yet planes still fall from the sky. What's really going on? Air traffic control failures, weak infrastructure, outdated safety regulations. It's a cocktail of problems that keeps leading to disaster. After the Gulf crash, everyone started talking about the need to fix air traffic systems. After the TAM disaster, everyone agreed that Brazil's airports needed upgrades. Then Vopass crashed, and once again, safety came under fire. But is enough actually changing? Yes, there have been improvements. Runways have been restructured to include grooves that prevent hydroplaning. Air traffic control systems got some upgrades. Pilots have been put through stricter training. Aircraft maintenance laws tightened. But clearly it hasn't been enough. Because when you keep losing lives, when families are left with nothing but wreckage, and when lessons learned don't seem to stop the next crash, something bigger is wrong. And let's not forget the people left behind. Every name on those passenger lists had a life, dreams, people waiting for them to come home. Instead, what they got were emergency response teams picking through debris, news headlines filled with sorrow, and memorials standing as painful reminders of what should never have happened. People say air travel is the safest way to get around. But for the families who lost loved ones in these disasters, those words mean nothing. So what now? How do we stop history from repeating itself? How do we make sure that the next plane landing in São Paulo, cruising over the Amazon, or flying above a quiet neighborhood doesn't become another headline? Brazil's aviation industry has been shaken too many times. The question is, will the changes be enough before another tragedy unfolds? After so many crashes, so many warnings, and so much loss, one thing is clear: knowing what to do in a disaster could be the only chance to make it out alive. The choices that could save your life. Let's be real, nobody hops on a plane thinking about crashing. But here's the thing, knowing what to do if things go south could mean the difference between walking away or becoming just another statistic. You don't have to obsess over worst-case scenarios, but ignoring basic survival steps, that's just asking for trouble. Before you even set foot on the plane, you can do a few smart things to put the odds in your favor. And trust me, when chaos erupts, you'll want every possible advantage. First off, where you sit matters a lot. The closer you are to an exit, the faster you can get out if the plane goes down. Middle seats, not ideal. Sitting right at the wings, solid structure, but if there's a fire, good luck. So count the rows between you and the nearest exit, front and back. If the cabin is full of smoke, you won't see a thing, but muscle memory might just save your life. If you're the type who zones out during safety briefings, rethink that habit. That flight attendant spiel might sound repetitive, but guess who won't be scrambling in a crisis? The person who actually paid attention.
To fasten your seatbelt, insert the metal end into the buckle, as cabin crew are now demonstrating.
Now, let's talk about what you wear. If you think your beachwear is plane-friendly, think again. Short sleeves, flip-flops, and synthetic fabrics might be comfy, but they won't do you any favors in an emergency. Fire spreads fast, and synthetic fabrics melt right into your skin. Long sleeves, long pants, and closed-toe shoes are the smart choice. Sneakers? Perfect. Sandals? Just imagine trying to sprint across debris in those. High heels? Not only will they slow you down, but they could puncture the emergency slide. Fashion can wait. Survival comes first. Buckle up and do it right. That seatbelt isn't just for turbulence, it's your first line of defense if something goes wrong. Keep it snug and low across your lap. Loose belts equal broken ribs and internal injuries if you slam forward. During takeoff and landing, stay extra aware. These are the moments when most accidents happen. If you're the kind of person who immediately reclines their seat and zones out, rethink that move. Alertness could be the thing that keeps you alive. Let's say things take a turn for the worst. Maybe the plane loses power, maybe there's a fire, or maybe you hear the captain say the words nobody wants to hear. Brace for impact. Don't panic, but don't freeze either. Your best chance at surviving the crash itself is getting into the right position. If there's a seat in front of you, place your head against your arms on the seat back. If there isn't, bend forward, tuck your head, and wrap your arms around your legs. It might not feel natural, but it helps absorb the impact and keeps you from flying into the seat ahead. Once the plane hits the ground, you have seconds, yes seconds, to get out. Forget your bags, your laptop, your passport, your designer carry-on, useless. The only thing that matters is getting to the exit. A burning plane turns into an inferno fast. If you waste time grabbing your belongings, you're gambling with your life. Move with purpose, but don't shove others out of the way. Panic leads to trampling, and you don't want to be the reason someone doesn't make it. If the cabin fills with smoke, stay low. Toxic fumes will knock you out long before fire gets to you. Cover your mouth and nose with a cloth if you can. Don't stand up and start looking around. Crawling is your best bet. Follow the floor lights to the exit, and if a flight attendant is yelling directions, listen to them. They've trained for this. Once you're outside, don't hang around near the wreckage. Get as far away as possible, at least a few hundred feet. Planes carry a lot of fuel and explosions happen. If you're in water, get your life vest on and stay calm. Frantic swimming wastes energy. If the crash was on land, check yourself and those around you for injuries. Even if you feel fine, adrenaline can hide serious damage. If you can move and help others, do it. If rescuers are looking for survivors, make yourself visible. Even skilled pilots and strong planes cannot stop every danger, but the most dangerous problems are often the ones no one notices until it is too late. When the sky turns against you. Airplane crashes don't just happen out of nowhere. There's always a reason. Actually, there are usually a lot of reasons all working together in the worst way possible. One of the biggest causes? Human error. Pilots go through tons of training, but at the end of the day, they're just people. And people mess up. Maybe they're exhausted, maybe they misread an instrument, or maybe they just make the wrong call at the worst possible moment. Especially during takeoff and landing, those few seconds can mean the difference between a smooth flight and total disaster. Airlines try to cut down on mistakes with teamwork training, but nothing is foolproof. Then there are mechanical failures. Planes are complicated machines with thousands of parts, and if just one of them goes wrong at the wrong time, it's bad news. Sometimes the problem starts at the factory with a design flaw or a manufacturing mistake. Other times, it's a maintenance issue, something that should have been fixed but wasn't. Engines fail, hydraulics give out, and even the body of the plane can have weak spots that eventually lead to catastrophe. Regular inspections help, but let's be real. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. Weather is another major player in plane crashes. Thunderstorms, fog, heavy rain, snow, bad weather can make flying a nightmare. Pilots depend on visibility, and when they can't see, they have to rely on their instruments, which isn't always foolproof. Wind shear is especially dangerous as it can cause a sudden loss of altitude. And don't even get started on icing. When ice builds up on a plane's wings, it messes with aerodynamics, making it way harder to stay in the air. Pilots check weather reports constantly, but sometimes the sky changes faster than anyone can react. Bird strikes might not sound like a big deal, but they can be deadly. A single bird hitting an engine at high speed can take down an entire aircraft. If a flock gets in the way, it's even worse. Airports do their best to keep birds away from runways, but it's impossible to prevent every encounter. And when birds hit at the wrong time, like right after takeoff, there's not much a pilot can do. Another terrifying scenario is controlled flight into terrain, CFIT. This is when a plane crashes straight into the ground, a mountain, or the ocean, even though it's technically in perfect working order. This happens when pilots lose situational awareness, often due to bad visibility or confusion. That's why systems like Ground Proximity Warning Systems, GPWS, were invented to scream at pilots when they're about to hit something. But even then, pilots have to react fast, and sometimes they don't have enough time. Fuel problems can also bring a plane down. Running out of fuel might sound like a rookie mistake, but it happens more often than you'd think. Sometimes there's a leak. Sometimes the fuel gets stuck in the wrong tank. Either way, if fuel doesn't reach the engines, they shut off, and no engine means no flying. Pilots are supposed to calculate fuel needs carefully and check levels during the flight, but mistakes and malfunctions happen. Mid-air collisions are rare, but when they do happen, they're catastrophic. Planes are supposed to be spaced out carefully, but if someone miscommunicates or ignores the rules, two aircraft can end up in the same airspace. The good news? Traffic Collision Avoidance Systems, TCAS, have drastically reduced these accidents by giving pilots automated warnings. But pilots still have to follow them, and that doesn't always happen. Not all crashes are accidents. Sabotage and terrorism have caused some of the worst aviation disasters in history. That's why airport security is so strict. Still, people find ways around it, and when they do, the consequences are devastating. Bombs, hijackings, even cyber attacks on airplane systems, all of these are terrifying possibilities. Pilot health is another hidden danger. If a pilot suffers a heart attack, stroke, or any sudden medical emergency mid-flight, the co-pilot has to take over. That's why pilots go through medical screenings, but no test can predict everything. If both pilots are incapacitated, that's a nightmare scenario. Air traffic controllers also hold a lot of responsibility. They manage dozens of planes at once, making sure each one has the right instructions to avoid disaster. But they're human too. A single wrong instruction, a misheard radio message, or just a split-second mistake can send a plane into danger. That's why controllers go through non-stop training and use advanced radar systems, but errors still happen. Runway incursions are another overlooked issue. Sometimes planes, vehicles, or even people end up on the runway when they shouldn't be there. A plane coming in for landing or taking off at high speed doesn't have much time to react. That's why airports use strict protocols and surveillance systems, but not every near miss is avoided. Cargo can also cause crashes. If a plane is loaded incorrectly, the weight distribution gets thrown off, making it hard to control. Even worse, some cargo is dangerous. Flammable materials, chemicals, or even batteries can cause fires. Pilots rely on correct loading procedures, but if something is stored improperly or shifts mid-flight, it can be deadly. As planes become more automated, another risk emerges: technology failures. Software glitches, autopilot errors, and system malfunctions can confuse pilots and lead to disaster. Modern aircraft rely on complex computer systems, and if those systems fail, pilots have to take over manually, sometimes in high-stress situations. That's why regular software updates and pilot training on manual flying are still crucial. Was this plane crash just a tragic accident? Or could there be something far more sinister behind the deaths of these cancer researchers? Were they on the verge of a breakthrough that someone didn't want revealed? The truth may be more disturbing than we realize. What do you think really happened that day? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.